Hello, my name is Cheryl Blower.
Hi, I'm Lindsey Phone Call.
Yes, where we are from Foundations of Leadership, LED 325, and the book we were assigned this to go over is Book 3 of the Humble Leadership Series by Edgar Schein, Humble Inquiry, The Gentle Art of Asking Instead of Telling.
Humble inquiry is the skill and the art of drawing someone out, of asking questions to which you do not already know the answer to, or of building a relationship based on curiosity, interest in the other person.
An example of this was quoted by Mr. Schein in the first part of his book. He was talking about one of his students that was studying for an important finance exam that he had coming up. And he spent the time in his basement studying for this exam. He put explicit instructions not to be interrupted by anyone, especially his 6-year-old daughter. Well, he was working late in the night, and a knock came on the door announcing the arrival of his daughter. He said sharply, "I told you not to interrupt me." With that, the little girl burst into tears and went running back upstairs. The next morning, his wife berated him for upsetting their daughter. And he went on to vigorously defend himself against that he was busy and did not want to be interrupted. That was the instructions. Well, the wife interrupted and said, "Well, I asked her to tell you good night and offer you a cup of coffee while you studied. Now, why did you not ask her what she wanted instead of simply just yelling at her to go away?"
If you would have asked her instead of told her, yes, it would have taken time away from his studying, but he would have actually had a humble inquiry and actually built a relationship with her rather than yelling at her. So instead, he can take a break, ask her why she's interrupting, and then after he gets her response, he can then decide if it's something that he wants to take a break for, or if it's something that he needs to not do at the time, and he can continue at that time. But by yelling at her, it obviously did not strengthen the relationship. And if you would have asked the question, it would have definitely gone better. Probably better morning for him too, right?
So in other words, he should have done less telling and asked her what she wanted.
In order to do better, we need to do 3 things. So we need to do less telling and ask more. Even if you are asking a question that you already know the answer to, you're actually telling them. A second thing that you need to do is learn to do more asking in the particular form of humble inquiry, which is showing curiosity, that you actually have interest in the other person and that you want to know, the answer to your question. And then the third one is do a better job of listening and acknowledging. So truly take in what they're saying, don't assume what they're going to say, and acknowledge them.
Exactly. Now, to get humble inquiry, you really need to look at what humility is. There are 3 types of humility. We have basic humility, and that's based on our status at birth, our social position. It is not a choice, but a condition. The second would be optional humility, and that's whether we choose to or not put ourselves in the presence of those who would humble us with their achievements. The one that humble inquiry is more based on is the here and now humility. This is how we feel when we are dependent on you or when someone is dependent on us. Based on those, the properties that we started talking about of humble inquiry is humble inquiry does not influence. It is a question to find out information. Some of this is conveyed by body language, tone of voice, timing, and other cues. How you stand, how you ask the question.
Don't cross your arms. Shows that you're not open to what they're actually saying to you, and that you're not going to.
You mean not to interrupt you?
What? Oh my gosh, that doesn't work.
Oh man. Also, we want to maximize curiosity and interest.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and when you're automatically assuming what they're going to say or kind of filling in the blank for them, you're actually bringing in your own bias into it. And when you bring your own bias in, you're not actually listening to them and getting the full story, which you're then telling
Right.
instead of asking.
And then I'm going to come up with a preconception of what I really think.
Mm-hmm.
Which you really want to minimize your biases and preconceptions. You can assume by what they're doing or what they're saying is always true.
Mm-hmm. And people can feel that. They know when you're being genuine, when you're really listening to them and wanting to know what the answer to the question. If you're asking instead of, or you're telling instead of asking, and you're not truly listening to them, they can feel that, and then that just hinders your relationship with them. Another example that they gave in the book was when the airlines first investigated some of their serious accidents, they found that some resulted from communication failures in the cockpit. In several dramatic cases, the senior person just plain did not pay attention to the junior person who was giving out key information as the plane crashed. For a time, the airlines launched team training programs and even assigned crews that had trained together to work with each other in the cockpit. But when this became too expensive and too unwieldy to manage, they went back to a system where the checklist and professionalism were expected to facilitate the necessary communication. This story is just a key that everybody has something to offer. No matter your status, just because you are a senior person doesn't mean you can't ask questions or listen to the junior people. They have stuff to offer you as well. And senior leaders, I guess, or people need to realize that they're there because of the junior people.
Exactly. Everyone has something to offer in what is being explained. And also know your motives before you ask a question. Why are you asking it? Also, if you ask a question, you are testing your thought. And remember that you are, if you're testing your own thoughts, you are telling instead of asking. So don't test your thoughts. Have a reason to ask the question.
That just brings back into the whole bias into it. If you already know the answer, or you're fishing for an answer that you think that you already know the process, you're bringing your own bias into it, you're not truly listening to them, and then you're not humble inquiry, you're actually really telling in a form of asking rather than actually asking.
Yes. Another example was about a daughter. His daughter, they were on a trip to Cape Cod, and his little girl cut her head on a glass table. They were far away from medical attention, so it was a couple-hour drive to the nearest hospital. And then, of course, once you get to a hospital, we all know you have to wait. Mm-hmm. So they were at the hospital for a while, and then it was a couple-hour drive back. By the time they got the stitches done and drove back, it was 2 a.m. in the morning. The next morning, his wife and I met a colleague of mine, Ellen, at the tennis courts and told her about our awful evening. And Ellen's response was, "What else happened all that time?" What is she talking about?
I went to the ER. I got stitches. I went home at 2 in the morning. They were so focused on everything that was happening that they actually didn't see all the positive times that they had. So they got to, although they didn't spend the time with the daughter as how they wanted to, probably on the beach, they were in a car, but they were still spending time together. So it's kind of just, when she asked that question, the humble inquiry, it actually opened up more than to what the person was actually telling. So when we do ask humble inquiry questions, and we're truly wanting to know what's happening and questions that we don't already know the answers to, they actually will show us more to what's happening than what the person is telling you initially.
Exactly. So we want to be more reflective, see more, review and reflect upon your behavior before you ask. Mm-hmm. Or also after you've asked, why? She made me reflect back that we had 2 hours of conversation that we did not plan on, and we grew closer as we were driving to and from.
Feel more, become sensitive to coordination needs in your work. So, when you're doing that, like we said before, they can tell if you're not genuine. They can tell if you're really just asking because, hey, you're the leader and you really just need to check in and see how their day is. In the book, do you remember when they were talking about how if you ask somebody, how's your day going, everybody, generic answer, most people just respond fine? Yeah, but do you remember what they changed it to, the question? It was, what's something good happening today?
Yeah, what good happened to you today?
Right? And they can't answer with just fine.
And that kind of leads up to broaden the capacity. Do more, build the relationships, and also cultural islands. Those are situations in which you attempt to suspend cultural rules pertaining to authority and trust the relationship will take over, which is very important. Humble inquiry is just a matter of taking the time and thinking.
As a leader, they also were talking about how when you're truly asking a humble inquiry question, you're leaving yourself open to vulnerability. Because some people think that when you ask these questions, you may look dumb. As a leader, you may not know what your junior people or your other team members do. So when you ask these questions, it may look like you just don't know what you're doing, but you're building that relationship with them.
That's very important. So to conclude our book information, we're going to quote from Mr. Schein. All of us find ourselves from time to time in situations that require innovation and some risk-taking. Some of us are formal leaders. Most of us just have leadership thrust upon us from time to time by the situations we find ourselves in. The ultimate challenge is for you to discover that at those moments you should not succumb to telling, but to take charge with humble inquiry.